call Lent. And I wonder if we are just so familiar with the words that we fail to perceive what this is about. In fact, I think we have helped make Lent into a cartoon, not only to ourselves, but to the larger world. Something not to be taken seriously. It's hard. I can imagine some people hearing what this particular Ash Wednesday liturgy is about is saying, you're dust. You have no value. And it sounds like another put down in our lives. And when it comes from the lips of God or the mouth of the church, it cuts even deeper. Or we have a tendency to stereotype this season in terms of giving something up and creating some kind of version of a spiritual Olympics. That we set a goal, I'm going to do this or not do that, and I'm going to get the bronze medal at least, if not the gold medal, and that is a terrible distortion. Willpower is not what this is about. In fact, if you do have a goal, and I hope you do, and I'll speak about what I would suggest that be, but chances are you're going to fail. I know I do. And so why try? Except, again, we missed the point. In the Ash Wednesday Gospel, there are many important things that are said, but the two just strike me so strongly. One is the headline in the last verse, and it's a verse we should memorize, because it's not just gospel, as it were, it's really true. Because where your treasure is, your heart's going to be there. Now, that gets to the point of the fact that everybody is religious. The problem is what we worship. The problem is where we put our hearts, where we give our hearts. And so if we treasure distortions, well, you can fill that blank in. Conversely, Lent calls us, this is the season of the heart. This is the season of where we place and trust our lives. And if it is not with the maker of heaven and earth, well then there's trouble in River City. Everyone is religious. The problem is what we worship. The message of Ash Wednesday is that we are ash, yet with God, those ashes have life. The other thing that stands out and can be so misheard and distorted is all the stuff Jesus talks about being hypocrites. I remember a long time ago, someone in my presence, maybe my face, said that he didn't come to church because it's filled with hypocrites. And I had a God moment, and I was able to respond, yeah, that's right, but there's always room for one more.
That's right.
Thank you. The problem, yes, we do not want to be hypocrites. In fact, it's one of the most offensive things to be charged with, because when you are charged with being a hypocrite, what that does is it questions your own integrity as a person. You're a phony. I would rather be called a lot of things than a phony. And yet, if you look at me, or any of us with some insight, we aren't what we appear to be. What's that old Beatles song? I'm a loser, it's not what I appear to be. That's a good Ash Wednesday confession, John Lennon. But the word hypocrite comes to us from the ancient Greek theater. Some of you know this better than I. Where there was one actor with many masks playing the roles. I think maybe it was just cheaper to do the theater that way. You didn't have to pay a bunch of actors. And so the mask was the hypocrite. Well, in that sense, it's a double-edged sword, because we all have masks, and they matter. I wasn't born a priest. I've had to learn through a lot of mistakes. I wasn't born to be a husband or a father or a friend. I had to wear that mask and try to live into it. And sometimes it slips. And pay no attention behind the man in the curtain. We hate being held accountable for being what we call an empty suit. The kids call it being a poser. I like that. And we are enthralled in our culture with celebrity. Even can get elected as a celebrity. You know, being famous. But what's there? We are hypocrites. And it shouldn't be offensive as a threat to our integrity. It's simply an accountability. And the good news is once we deal with these masks and recognize that there are certain masks we need to live into and certain masks that are not helpful. And the mask that is helpful is the one we're given, and that's Jesus. Because that mask needs to just sink in. And that's what God calls us to do and to be. That's this season. In the gospel associated with the criticisms of being a hypocrite, Jesus says, beware of practicing your piety before others to be a show-off or to be popular or to be checked off as really good, religious, whatever the category is. But in the Jewish context, the word piety is very important. I don't want to be called pietistic. I don't want to be called pious. Oh, gee, there, see how we distort these things. But piety means the covenantal behavior. We are to be pious in the sense of expressing our partnership with God. That's the covenant. That's the deal. Now, you can question God whether God's an idiot for having people like us as partners, or maybe God's onto something. Most of the time we believe the second thing, or at least we talk about the second thing. And therefore, if we've been made partners of creation, then our piety needs to be behaving based on that partnership. There we are again. We're hypocrites, we're pious. Our piety, where are we? Well, it boils down to what I wrote to you last week in anticipation of this season. Lent's about practicing Easter. Someone in a previous parish said this, and I think it's very important and it's worthy of being remembered. It takes 10,000 hours of practice to become competent at something. Practicing New Orleans, doing research, being a student, a teacher, an engineer. 10,000 hours, and that begins to get us to be competent and expert so that we can be excellent. Well, the same goes for being God's people. We aren't just cracked open in an egg and do something right and get a shot and everything's fine. It's practice because it's a relationship. We have to practice at being friends. We have to practice at being spouses. We have to practice at being partners. We have to practice being God's people. And the hours aren't in a meter. It's not keeping score. It's doing it. And that's what pleases God. And that's what this invitation to Lent through Ash Wednesday is really about. Can we put our hearts into it, knowing that we'll fail? It won't be as good as we even want. And that doesn't matter to God. Are you on your way? Are you practicing until the practice becomes who you are? Muscle memory, as it were. That you don't have to think about it. Practicing kindness, practicing justice, practicing caring, practicing healing, practicing simply being present and not distracted. I'll close by rereading a poem that I printed to you about this day. And it is so important. because it corrects the distortions without erasing the details of Ash Wednesday. All those days you felt like dust, like dirt, as if all you had to do was turn your face toward the wind and be scattered to the four corners, or swept away by the smallest breath as insubstantial. Did you not know what the Holy One can do with dust? This is the day we freely say we are scorched. This is the hour we are marked by what has made it through the burning. This is the moment we ask for the blessing that lives within the ancient ashes, that makes its home inside the soil of this sacred earth. So, let us be marked, not for sorrow, and let us be marked, not for shame. Let us be marked, not for false humility or for thinking we are less than we are, but for claiming what God can do within the dust, within the dirt, within the stuff of which the world is made. And the stars that blaze in our bones and the galaxies that spiral inside the smudge, we bear.